You know, we've all seen them in movies, these incredible robotic suits. But what if I told you that industrial exoskeletons are no longer just science fiction? They're actually becoming a really serious strategic tool for businesses right now. So today, we're going to unpack how this tech is creating an augmented workforce, and maybe more importantly, what the real return on investment actually looks like. But before we get into the solution, let's start with a question that I think every operations leader has to ask themselves. What is the one big invisible cost that's just quietly eating away at your bottom line? And no, it's not equipment downtime or supply chain headaches. It's something much more human. Get a load of this number. In the European Union alone, what are called musculoskeletal disorders, or MSDs, cost a staggering 240 billion euros every single year just in lost productivity. I mean, that is a massive, massive economic drain, and it's all caused by physical strain on people. And this is not just a European problem, not by a long shot. It is a global crisis. Over in the United States, the direct medical costs from worker injuries top $100 billion a year. And look, these aren't just abstract numbers on a slide. They represent millions of lost workdays and real lives impacted by what are so often preventable injuries. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to dig a little deeper into that billion-dollar strain. Then we'll get to the fun part, the sci-fi solution that's actually here right now. We'll look at the tech that makes it all work, check out the hard data on its impact, and finally, we'll see this whole augmented workforce thing in action. All right, let's dive into our first section. We're really talking about defining the problem here, this hidden crisis of musculoskeletal disorders. So what are MSDs? Well, basically, they're injuries to the body's entire movement system, muscles, nerves, joints, you name it. And just think about jobs on an assembly line, in a warehouse, or on a construction site. The biggest risks are baked right into the work itself, right? It's all about intense repetition, heavy lifting, and being in awkward positions all day. That is the root cause of that multi-billion-dollar problem we were just talking about. Okay, so how on earth do you solve a problem that's so fundamental to the work itself? Well, you don't replace the worker, you augment them. And that's where things get really interesting. At their core, the easiest way to think about an industrial exoskeleton is just as a really advanced piece of personal protective equipment, like a hard hat or safety glasses. But instead of just protecting you from something hitting you, these are designed to proactively reduce muscle strain. They prevent injuries before they even have a chance to happen. And believe me, this isn't some niche, futuristic concept. The number of exoskeletons in use around the world is projected to explode, hitting almost 720,000 units by 2030. So this technology is being adopted right now, and it is scaling up fast. But what's the technology that's actually driving this whole revolution? It's really important to know that not all exoskeletons are created equal. They generally fall into two main camps. So on one hand, you've got your passive systems. These are purely mechanical. Think of them like a super smart suspension system for your body, using springs and dampers to store and release your own energy. Then, on the other side, you have the active or powered exoskeletons. And this is where the robotics come in. Batteries, sensors, motors, to give you an actual external power boost. These are perfect for those really high-intensity, repetitive lifting jobs. Okay, now for the part that really matters to the balance sheet, the proof. Let's look at the real data and the actual, tangible return on making this kind of investment. I mean, the business case here is just crystal clear. This technology can slash serious lower back and hip injuries by up to 61%. Just think about what that does to your workers' comp claims and insurance costs. At the same time, because workers are less tired, you can see productivity gains of up to almost 8%. So when you combine those savings with the efficiency gains, the average payback period for the investment is less than 6 months. That's incredible. Of course, all of the fancy tech in the world is useless if your team won't use it, right? Well, that's not an issue here. A massive 95% of employees say they're satisfied with these devices. This just proves it isn't some top-down tool being forced on people. It's technology that workers actually appreciate because it makes their jobs easier and a whole lot safer. Let's look at a real-world example just to see how this plays out. Over at the Fao Jifeng auto plant, workers were dealing with constant fatigue from doing overhead assembly. So the company brought in some lightweight upper body exoskeletons. The results? They were immediate. They saw a measurable jump in efficiency and a really noticeable improvement in just how the workers felt at the end of the day. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here's a direct quote from one of the assembly line workers there. He said this mechanical aid made the work easier and more efficient. And that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? That's the sweet spot. A win for the employee and a win for the company. Now, that case study was from the auto industry, but don't think for a second this is just for car manufacturing. The applications for this technology are incredibly broad. I mean, just look at this list. You see the impact across manufacturing, logistics, and construction, for sure. But these exoskeletons are also being used in some of the most physically demanding fields out there, like firefighting, agriculture, and even military operations. The big takeaway here is that this is a super versatile solution for pretty much any industry that relies on physical labor. So what we're really seeing is that line between science fiction and everyday reality just getting blurrier and blurrier. These devices, they're not a dream for the future anymore. They are a practical, valuable, and financially smart asset for protecting workers and boosting the bottom line today. The question is no longer if this technology is going to change the way we work, but really, how quickly are you going to adapt?